how behind-the-scenes videos can help you get in front of your customers.
Let's get into it.
Video Mavericks, the small business video marketing podcast. Presented by Workshop Media. With your hosts, Brett and Jeff, sharing a combined 40 years of video production and marketing experience. Take it away.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people will probably think of it like, the movies.
Right.
They're, we're seeing behind the scenes of a movie being made or a commercial being made. That's something we've probably all heard, back in the day of DVDs and having the menu features there,
Man, I would always it's got the bonus features, it's got all this stuff. I miss those days.
Yeah. But you always wanted to go watch the behind the scenes. You want to see how this thing was made.
Right.
This is a little bit different. So behind the scenes in this case, it could be behind the scenes of how you're making something.
Yeah.
But really it's just a look behind, the activities, the people, the personality, the culture behind the brand that is being presented to the customer.
Yep.
So you have the storefront, but what's happening behind the point of sale? What's happening, in the back end of the business, so to speak.
And that can be your people, your processes, your product. It's anything really. A lot of times we just think about the business has to be this perfectly buttoned up thing, and what we show has got to be the absolute best, the most polished. But in many cases that is true. But, we as customers connect emotionally with businesses and we make purchases that way now. So what better way to connect than to show that polished thing and then go, let's take a look back how it's made.
You might think of it like behind the scenes stuff is to hear you say we're talking about the people. So that could be culture videos, it could be explainer videos, those types of things. To your point, the polished content. The behind the scenes is maybe by design a little rougher around the edges. It doesn't mean that it's poor quality, but
it doesn't have to be.
Right. It doesn't have to be that top tier polish. And by design, it can be a little closer to, hey, come and let's have a conversation. Let me show you around. Because the vibe with that is you're inviting your customer, your viewer to see something that people don't see this,
right.
Which is kind of a fallacy because you're showing it to everybody.
Yeah.
But, when it's done well, it feels like you're being let behind the curtain, which is kind of fun. And
so you had mentioned it being kind of like the movies, behind the scenes. And we're not suggesting make content of content you're getting made.
Right.
Imagine your business as a movie. And so you're creating, if like you said, I want to see how they made that. If your business is the movie, then show some of that back end. Show what it looks like, from the back of house. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it doesn't matter what that is. It's just you're just going, this is interesting. What if you had a cool piece of equipment that is very necessary in producing your product? We've done this with one of our clients where they had a piece of machinery and we gave it character. We gave it life as if it was had a role in a movie, a member of the team. Yeah. And we made a piece that was specifically about that. And that's really cool because it shows your interest in the work you do for your end user. And they get to see oh man, look at the passion they have behind this. Look at this machine they renovated and made into, a modern piece of equipment that does the work of 3 people and makes these amazing products, and that's a really cool thing. And it didn't require any people. We, in that particular piece of content, we added people to that video, but you don't have to.
Right. And in that case, it's just continued brand building because to your point, when you see your staff, when your customer can see your staff and how excited they are about something, even though that particular thing, maybe the customer never needs to know about that, right? So in this particular case, the piece of machinery was for cutting wood. And if the customer never knew how the wood was cut in order to create the product that they bought, they still can buy the product.
That's right. And do. And
so,
likely would.
But But in this particular case, showing off that product, it did so many different things. It showed that the people that run this business are really, really passionate about this thing. It shows that they invest their money in a particular way for, the way that they chose to buy the equipment.
It shows that they know their world.
That's what I was going to say. It shows that they're experts. And honestly, it's just kind of fun because you got to look in their warehouse. You got to look in their shop for a moment.
That's right.
And see something. So, even if you don't have a big piece of equipment in your shop, or you don't do something that is that sort of thing, maybe instead of introducing your customer to a piece of hardware, you introduce them to, the guy that packs the orders.
Yeah.
And the character that is that person. You're seeing, that's the guy that puts the note in every single order that goes out.
How cool. And that's what we want in marketing, right? We want this connection. We want to align with these brands, because if you do that, the money's going to flow. The sales will be made. You have to, think about these ways, to do it strategically. So let me ask you this: where does this? Do you just out the gate start making this content? Is there video that happens before this? Like, where in the timeline of a business making these videos?
So we will always say doing something is better than doing nothing. But in a perfect case scenario, you will have already built the foundation of the brand by the time you get to this kind of content. So your customer will know your brand story through something like a brand film. They'll understand what it is that you're selling and offering through something like an explainer. This is further down the line where you're reinforcing those values that have already been presented.
You'd say so. Like, there might be the social proof would even be a great piece or series of video clips and reels to go before this, right? You really want to set up everything to where it can be knocked down, So this particular piece of content is consideration, right? It'd probably be a part of this stage.
Yep. They're the customer at this point. Let's say they watch this behind the scenes content. If they watch, I'll go back to the example of the wood cutting machine. If the customer watches the wood cutting video, but then has nowhere to go after that to understand the brand or understand how to make a purchase or even to know what they do, all they saw is that this, let's assume that the customer hasn't seen anything.
Yeah, right.
And they see, that's really neat. Why?
What? It's really cool, but I'm missing some connection pieces here.
Yeah, in that case, you would, you might make the mistake of entertaining your customer without informing them, or entertaining and informing them, but not helping them to the point of actually you making some money out of the deal. So
and making a lifelong customer potentially, right?
So, you really want to use those types of tools, the behind the scenes tools and others, to drive people back to the core message. And so that core message needs to exist. And frankly, the behind the scenes content will come easier after you've done that other work of really understanding your brand, understanding the pillars and the value system and how you're talking to people about it. Because while behind the scenes videos should be a little, they should be more authentic and they can be a little more raw. They don't need to be without a purpose, and they don't need to be random. They should still be pointed towards the message that you want your customer to resonate with, and
what action you need them to take.
If you're doing the behind the scenes things first, but you haven't figured out how you're speaking to your customer, you might be showing the wrong thing behind the scenes. Maybe the guy packing the orders is not part of the storyline that the viewer needs to know about. Or maybe it detracts from it in some way. Or maybe you haven't decided, actually, we don't really want to focus on the way that we package because packaging is not something that we're particularly proud of at this point in our business. So you have to kind of understand some of those things well in advance so you can make little decisions along the way so that content fits.
But if you go into making your video content or working with, an agency partner, videographer, what have you, you will collect B-roll footage, as we call it. You'll collect content along the way that can be made into assets later without actually spending a bunch of extra money. If you go into it strategically, you can make a lot of this stuff later. If you're making a brand video and an explainer piece, some of that footage could be, repurposed.
That's a great point.
And that's just, takes a lot of pre-production, a lot of thought in advance to get the most ROI.
Yep.
So.
Well, and and in the case, let's say you've established and you've created all of that that core brand messaging. You have some polished behind the scenes stuff. You have sort of your core suite of things, and now you're starting to support that more polished content with some user generated content. Behind the scenes stuff is probably one of the easiest things, because you're looking at what's already underway and figuring out how to talk about it.
I mean, just think about it. You already have these things going on.
Yeah.
So don't overthink this. What is it? What's your biggest seller? And then focus on some storylines that support that.
Yeah.
What is your weakest seller, and how can behind the scenes help boost that?
Yeah. Maybe you're proud that a particular product that you offer is handmade, and you've been telling everybody it's handmade. It's handmade. Handmade means something very different when it's read than when you see the thing being made by hand. We put out
handmade.
we put out hundreds of these, and every single one of them is woven by hand.
Yeah.
That means something entirely different when you can see it versus it being on a product label.
It makes me think about a video. This is probably 10 years or more now. Rolls-Royce. So there's a video, 60 pairs of hands, and it shows all the different phases where people are handcrafting this vehicle, from the little push button umbrella that comes out inside the car, and all the
placing
different
the hood
things.
ornament.
It's all handmade.
Yeah.
The vehicle, So I don't know that. I think it's a really great piece, but I don't know that you need that for that brand, but it's still a great example of storytelling in this way. 60 pairs of hands have made this vehicle that you are now white glove delivery.
And what's interesting? You could confuse that with a product video, because we're seeing the product. A product video is not how they're putting the thing together,
or the features of whatever.
It's not. So in this particular case, the product is central, but the storyline is how the work is being done.
And the care that goes into it. And then every person it came across had their role to play, and how they made it what it is.
And that particular video is extremely high production value.
Right.
It is polished in every sense.
But it makes sense, right?
But it makes sense because
you can't put out a video that isn't of the caliber of the brand itself, of the product itself, right? So there's something to think about. But that's strategy that comes into it. Where we're saying it could be raw. It doesn't need to lose. You still are representing your brand, so it doesn't need to lose quality. But it can be a little less polished, a little less. That's kind of what we're getting at.
And particularly in the social media sense. If you're using it on Instagram or Facebook or, one of the sort of more flash in the pan type of posting, if it's you're going to be doing a lot of them, then you could create a style where this is okay in this vertical. And then you have some more polished things that are anchoring that. So I think it's really interesting. It's easy to think about it as only product-based stuff, but it would work for the service industries too. If you had a business that is a service-based business, then maybe you're focusing on the process that goes into preparing to do the work for your customer.
Yeah.
Or the process that goes into training the staff so that they are particularly good at the thing that they do. Or the staff themselves. Maybe there's a little bit of culture meets behind the scenes that can be demonstrated. So it doesn't always have to be how you make the bag, how you make the table, how you make the car. It can be how we're bringing top-tier quality service to you.
So what are some examples then of businesses utilizing this type of content?
Let's see. I mean, I like the Rolls-Royce thing a lot.
How about a coffee shop?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the food industry. We've seen, does food prep really matter to the end product? I guess it kind of can if that's part of your storyline. But, if I'm buying a croissant, the croissant, if it's good, I'm probably going to buy the croissant. Yeah. You know what I mean? But if I see how it's made, how, the dough is being mixed by hand and it's being, it's being treated in a caring way, and they go and source the material from a local vendor. And
we've talked about this in a previous episode about, aligning with that bakery, aligning with that coffee shop. That's where I go. So I want as much content. I want to align with them as much as possible. It may be the best possible croissant that's out there, and I'm still going to buy it. But there are a lot of people out there, and that might not have tried that croissant yet. And we're trying to make fans and get customers out of them. We're not trying to sell customers. We're trying to build a movement. We're trying to get people on board with what we have to offer, emotionally connect with us. So come back here. Let's see, some flour on our face. Let's see us having fun behind let's see us at 4:30 in the morning, rolling out dough and doing, whatever. How about a marketing company showing what it's like building a concept. Let's see them in their war room, putting ideas together.
You're demonstrating the care for the client in that particular case. Or
you're getting to see what that looks like. I'm paying for that expertise. I'm paying for, and all I know from the other side, from the customer's perspective, is that result that I get.
I get something at the end of it, which is the product on the shelf, so to speak.
Yeah. So let's kind of show a little bit. I mean, you don't have to show every single detail, but let's show a little glimpse. Like, let's see all of these experts come together and how their minds work to deliver that really great end result. You know?
I think behind the scenes, I'm thinking about the medical field. Behind the scenes might be how the staff interacts with one another. That so a culture piece can sometimes lend more towards recruiting, but a culture piece that shows that there's collaboration that's happening. And what does that look like? When teams come together, you're giving a glimpse inside of this expert and that expert coming together to have a conversation to solve a problem together.
These departments get together on the other side of that door, and this is how it all comes to be.
Yeah, the value to the customer, viewer, as the value to you for coming to us is you're getting experts who talk.
Yep.
And if that's a unique value prop for your operation, then that would be a really important thing to show. Particularly, if you've identified your unique value prop is a pain point for people. Now you're starting to connect the dots with your story and why you're telling the story when you're telling it. And
how about a dance studio?
Oh man.
So I'm just like, let's see what comes to mind right away if I just start like pulling.
Preparing the space before, let's say if it's a dance studio for smaller kids, that work goes into making sure that the space is prepared, that the plan for the day is worked out before people show up, that it's cleaned on a regular basis. Your kid is going to come in and is going to be safe here.
Yeah.
That the instructors themselves are experts and they have the skill set to be teaching you to begin with.
They live the world. They're stretching the instructors before anybody gets there. They're reviewing new dance moves or choreography to see what new things, what new programs can be created. I mean, that's kind of fun.
You mentioned reviewing dancing. I'm thinking about in pro sports, we see, how many times have you seen video of teams watching game film?
Yeah.
None of that matters to you watching the game on television on Sunday, but it's part of brand building that organization, that team is putting the work in. This is part of, it's building up that team as something that's worthy of your attention, that's worthy of, your fandom. So they're showing you what that looks like, how these people are training, how they're reviewing film, how they're...
It's like,
the locker room speak. Like, it's entertainment in their case, but it is entertainment for the purpose of making you a loyal fan of them.
Right. That's assuming you know about it. So you're saying, what are you saying, like Hard Knocks or something?
I'm thinking...
Like these shows that show you behind the scenes of the whole season?
Any of that stuff, or even like social media content where we're seeing the team, we're seeing the team reviewing film, we're seeing the team in the locker room getting their post-game hype. It's all serving the purpose of building the brand, building the connection to the brand.
They're still going to be 1-16.
What team is it?
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that, man. Jags. All right, so
it's objectively true.
What about lawn care? How about that one?
So that could be the care that's put into maintaining equipment or loading up in the morning to come out when the sun's the sun's not up yet and they're preparing to get there.
I love taking care of the equipment. That speaks to the importance of the business and keeping the business tip top, which means you pick the right company.
Right. It's meet the team type thing. I want to, who's the person that's coming out to, and who are they at a personal level so that you feel better about them being in your backyard when you're not there.
Yeah.
Things like that. So, yeah, I think it's kind of endless. And, you just have to think about, your particular business and what are things that maybe that are just typical for you that, you know, it happens with us. Nobody wants to hear about that. Nobody wants to see that.
Right.
And then,
except for the ones that do.
And then the ones that do, they're just instantly flabbergasted when they see what the work actually, sometimes we are, when we see behind the scenes of our work, we go, oh man, that's what it looks like.
Because we were just in here in doing the work, right?
So you have to take yourself out of it for a second. And what are some of the things that you're doing on a daily basis? What are some of those sort of, you know, the lifeblood of the business that your consumer or your potential customer can connect with? How can they become more friends with you? Yeah, on a personal level, so that they're aligning with your brand.
That's it,
and
man.
Wanting
that's the
to
whole
support
thing.
Whatever it is that you're doing.
It's not trying to sell so much, and the sale will happen. Follow these steps. You're gonna connect. You're gonna build that loyalty by being vulnerable, being authentic, connecting, engaging, and inspiring your audience. That will turn them into a customer. Yep. And a customer not once, but over and over and over again, assuming you have something to offer that you can continue to sell. Right. But that this is the framework to do it, is to connect with them through video and digital platforms, and that sale will convert.
That's right. So, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We release episodes each week packed full of insights on how to grow and scale your business with strategic video marketing.
That's right. And if you're ready to take the next step with your business, join us in our brand storytelling workshop. In just 90 minutes, we'll work with you and your team to uncover your brand message, align everyone around a clear narrative, and map out the exact videos that will move your business forward. This is a custom strategic session built around your unique goals. Learn more and book your session at brandstoryworkshop.com.